Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and today I was actually inspired by that brooch that I made in my previous video. If you saw that, here's what it looks like. And I just really like how it came out at the top here, but it didn't have a bail and it was not a pendant, and so I wanted to make a pendant version of it. So I think it came out quite similar. So here it is. I did do one slightly different thing here, and I used a different shaped stone as well just to mix things up. But here's how it turned out, and if you want to see how I made it, just keep watching. So we're going to start out with 4 pieces of 20 gauge square copper dead soft wire. I buy my wire from riogrande.com because they sell these big bulk spools, and we are using 4 pieces instead of 3 for this design, which I know I never do. I always use 3 because 3 is kind of like the bare minimum. But 4 is really fun, even if you don't want to do this exact design. It's almost 12 inches. I'm just going to say it's 12 inches. Even if you don't want to do this exact design and you just want to try, something else, using 4 wires can be really nice, and it adds stability to the piece. And if you have a thicker stone, it really helps with that. But the reason that I'm using 4 is because that is what is needed for me to do something similar to that brooch design, as I mentioned before. So I'm using half round wire in 24 gauge. Dead soft half round copper. I'm just grabbing my little tail end of it, and I am wrapping it around to connect these wires. And if this first portion moves too quickly for you, where I'm just putting together the little frame and trapping the little stone in the little frame, do a video that I recently did that's kind of like a really slow, thorough video, especially if this is something that you're doing for the first time. Like, I don't necessarily recommend you start with this video as your first wire wrapping video, because it's not, I would call it more intermediate than beginner. But if you wanted to learn how to do these kinds of frames, I will link that video below where I kind of go step by step and I do it really nice and slow and thorough. So now we trim the little wire ends, and we make sure that the little ends are on the same side. And then we just press everything down, including those little ends there, with our pliers. So it looks like this. Now my stone, I forgot to measure my stone. It is an oval shaped stone, and it's like exactly an inch, or 30 millimeters. It's really cool. I believe it's obsidian, and it has this really interesting pattern carved into it, like a flower or like a mandala, because then it continues here in the edges. It's really beautiful, so I wanted to use it. Now normally, if you have an oval, you would bend this in an oval-like shape. But another thing you could do is you could put a little bend in it. So this side has the little wire ends, and I'm gonna put a bend in it. It can be a little trickier doing the bend, just because we're trying to get this little wrap that we did there nice and even. But because the stone itself doesn't have an angle on the bottom, like if it were a teardrop, upside down teardrop like my previous stone, for that we had to make this little angle for the stone to sit in. But this stone is just an oval, so you decide how big you want your angle to be and how big of a gap you want down here. So if this was too big, you can open this up more, make it a wider angle, or if you wanted a longer, bigger gap, then you can close this up, make it a smaller angle. But this is good. I'm actually happy with this. Now I'm going to try and center that. And you want to do this on like a table. Just put it down on like a flat surface. I'm just doing it in the air here so that I can hold it in front of my camera for you. So I'm just bending it around the stone, making my frame. Now I'm just kind of bending these wires like this so I can bring them together without them crisscrossing each other. And I'm putting a bend with my fingers here at the top so that these wires can come together like this. Okay, now I'm just making sure that these haven't crisscrossed, and I'm just going to reinforce the bends that I made with my fingers by making them a little sharper of a bend, going over it with my pliers here. Alright, so now I'm going to stack the wires on top of each other. So we have 4 wires on top of 4 wires here, just like this. And where is my half round wire here? I'm going to grab the end of it, which is hard to find because it got all unraveled. There it is. And I'm just going to grab the little tail end and wrap around this whole little bit here while all these wires are nicely lined up. And you can even reinforce that a little bit by pressing down on it. Alright, so that's good. So I'm grabbing this and I'm putting it from back to front, and I'm pulling on it. Make sure it's just nice and tight in there, and then I'm coming in here and just cutting it off super short. Now I'm going to take the frontmost 2 wires and I'm just going to bend them forward towards myself and bend these other ones back just a little bit, give myself space here. And with my half round wire, I'm just going to continue it and wrap it around these front 2 wires only, and that is going to be my bail. So that's why we needed an extra wire. That's why we needed 4 instead of 3 base wires, because in the brooch pendant we didn't have a bail. We had 3 wires, and here they all are, and we made decorations with them. But in this case we needed extra wires to make the bail. So I'm just going to do this for a little bit off camera. I'm just literally wrapping it around and around. I'm guiding the half round wire with my right hand, and I'm just turning the piece with my left hand, making sure that wire lays down nice and flat, and each little wrap is just lined up next to each other, making sure it doesn't get twisted. If I see it getting twisted, I'll untwist it before it gets to here, so it lays down the flat side down and the half rounded side up. So once it starts getting taller, about 3/4 of an inch or so, then I trim this little wire on the back. This is the underside or the back of the bail, because this is the front, and the bail will be bent. So I'm going to just press down that little wire end, and I'm just going to press down the whole thing. It just flattens that half round wire. And now these wires in the back here, so there's 3 on this side. If you take a close look, you'll notice it's these 3 coming up here. So you need to bend them onto this side and the other 3 onto the other side, separating it like this. The little wire end from before, can see it sticking up here, so I'm just gonna move it up and just kind of push it in there to hide it away like this. So now I'm just going to take my bail, I'm going to curve it with my fingers, give it a nice little curve there, and then I'm going to bend these wires so I can tuck them inside. I'm going to use my pliers here so that I can press this down to where I want. So I want this little wrap to end kind of where this wrap is, and now you can just squish that down like this and press on these. So there's our bail. So we just have to connect it. So we have these two wires. We only need to connect one of them. So I'm going to connect the leftmost one. So I'm just pushing it back to the back here, and I am just trimming it like this. And then I'm taking that little end of it and I'm tucking it inside and pressing down. So for this other wire, we're just going to trim it really short like this. And that's how we're going to get rid of that. And now we can pop our stone in here. So I'm going to pop it in like this, making sure that everything's good. It's nice and centered, sitting in there good. Now I'm going to grab my pliers, and on the back I'm going to make a bend in the backmost wire, but I'm going to try not to make it too far down because we have that gap down there and I don't want it to be visible through the gap. So just like this, just on the side of the stone. And now we're just coming here onto the other side and making a bend here as well. So on the front, I'm going to grab my pliers and wedge them in here so that I can bend this frontmost wire. So it doesn't matter how far down you go. You just have to remember where it is so that on the other side you can go down the same amount. So now on the other side, I'm going to try and wedge this down roughly the same kind of distance as I did on that side, so that my little bends will be symmetrical and my stone will be trapped from the front and the back. It's okay if it's a teeny bit wobbly. Sometimes it can be. You can push these wires down as well as the back wires if they're raised. Sometimes that can cause wobbliness, and then also once we do all the stuff at the top, sometimes it just kind of grabs and squishes these top wires here, and that makes the stone that much more secure. So now we're going to go ahead and make our design. Alright, so the first thing that I did on that other pendant that I'm going to do here as well, I'm going to take the frontmost left wire and I'm going to go ahead and wrap my half round wire around it. So I'm just grabbing it and wrapping the little tail end. And then I am going to add some tiny beads just like I did in that other video. So first I'm just starting off this half round wire, pushing down that little wire end. Alright, so now that we got it started, I'm going to go ahead and just wrap around here for a little bit until it is long enough for me to add my beads. So I decided to go with a slightly different color this time for the beads, because last time, even though my stone was a very dark stone, it had a little bit of warmth, it had a little bit of a brown tone, and this time it's just a solid black. And so I decided to add a dark blue bead. So I think this is long enough now. If I go ahead and I just kind of bend it like this, that looks long enough to me. So I can go ahead and add my little bead here. So I just went through my stash of random little beads to see what will fit on this 20 gauge wire, because a lot of beads are a little bit too small, but I found a few. So here's my little dark blue bead. I'm just going to keep wrapping, just letting the wire go over the bead here in the back so it's not visible from the front, and I'm just going to keep wrapping. And that's how you add a little bead into the wrap. So after about 5 wraps there, I'm gonna go ahead and add my other bead. It's just a tiny little metal bead that's like a charcoal color. And same thing, I'm just gonna let this wire go across it in the back. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just wrap around. So I'm just gonna do this for just a teeny bit longer. All right, so now it's long enough because it goes here to the other side. So I'm just gonna trim it, and I'm gonna pinch down this little wire end. So just like we did before, we're not gonna secure this down yet. We're gonna leave that for the end so we can put other wires underneath it and stuff. So the next wire, I'm gonna take and I'm gonna twist it like this. I might do something slightly different with this pendant, just slightly, because we have this nice little gap down here, and sometimes it's cool to bring these wires down and kind of wrap it around. So I don't know yet. Hopefully I'll find a wire to do that with. So we're gonna follow along our other wire with this twisted wire. Okay, so like this. Now this next wire is going to be the frontmost wire on the right hand side, and for this wire we're going to go ahead and make a loop. So I'm bringing it down, actually let me zoom in a tiny bit, and I'm bringing it here like this, and I'm making just a nice little loop. Then I'm bringing it underneath the other wires there and over to this side. So you can use your pliers to adjust this little loop if it's not looking round enough. All right, I think that's good. Then the next wire, we're just gonna follow along that first wire, bring it here to the other side. Now we have these 2 wires left, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab this wire and twist it. So because it's square wire, it shows this twisted pattern when you turn the wire, or you hold the wire and you turn the piece, it twists the wire, and the pattern can be like this, or you can do it for longer and then it'll be a tighter twist like down here. So with this one, I'm gonna try and just make a nice little curve here. There we go. Kind of matches. This is almost like a heart shape up here, and I don't want one side of it to be slightly larger than the other. So I have this wire coming here on this side, and now I'm gonna go ahead and try to just have it go just like this, right along the very edge there. I'm gonna take the tip of it and I'm going to tuck it into that little gap. So this is going to be the slight difference. In my other version, I just tuck that wire away. But here, I'm going to bring it down, wrap it around down here, and I'm going to squish that with my pliers like this. And now I'm just going to trim it, leave myself a little wire end so I can take and tuck that little wire end away. Just like that. Alright, so now we only have one wire that remains, and actually I made a mistake here, but it's okay, we'll fix it. So I actually want this wire to be on this side. So what we're gonna do, it's okay, this will be good in case this ever happens to you with other pendants as well, is just gonna kind of make a little curve in it and push it through the bail. See it coming here on this side? And now we can grab and pull it through the bail onto this side. Now it does make some little bumps in the wire. So what you do is just go over it with your pliers, just very gently, or if you have some nylon pliers you want to use, and that will straighten out those little kinks. And now I'm just going to twist this wire anyways, so that will also help cover up any kind of little minor imperfections that the wire got from being moved from one side to the other. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a nice tight twist to just cover all that up like that. All right, so now that we've done that, I'm just going to run it through my fingers a little bit, and I'm just going to bring it down, following along with my other wires here. I'm just going to bring it down, and this is the one that we made a little curl in last time, so I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to leave it for now, and I'm going to finish off my other wires, and then I'll do this one at the end. So first I'm going to work on these two wires that are on the left hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and bend them to the back like this, and you want them to be near the edge of the stone where the stone ends. And I'm just going to use my pliers here to make sure this doesn't have any bends in it. There we go. All right, so once you're happy with that, here's my two little wires. I'm going to trim them. Here's my two little wire ends for tucking away. And you can do one end at a time or just both at the same time, but just tuck them in there, just like this, and then press down on it to tighten them up. This is going to help the stone be tighter as well. So my stone is really secure now, not wobbly at all. And these two on the other side, I'm just going to go ahead and put just a nice little curvature in them, and I want there to be a little bit of a space between them as well. I think that looks nice. And then bending them to the back like this. Trimming them. And we're just gonna do one wire at a time here. Just take and tuck away that little wire end and just kind of press down on it to tighten it up. Now we're just going to do the next one. There we go. So, oh, you can kind of see the wire end of this one from the front. So what you do is you can just move it. You want the wire end to be underneath the wire like this, so it's kind of hidden away. So now we're gonna do this wire. We're gonna do the little curl, so I'm just gonna bend it. I'm gonna try and do a small curl because I don't want to cover up that pretty little flower pattern. So I'm just gonna do a tiny little curl. Grab my round nose pliers. So I'm gonna lift that up a little bit temporarily just so I can get in here. I like to squish the tip of the wire and then go ahead and make my little curl just like that. And now I'm going to press down on it because I raised it up, so I'm just going to press it back down. And I'm going to cut myself a little piece of half round wire, just a really nice small piece of just a few inches long, maybe like 3 inches long if you need an exact measurement. And what I'm going to do is tuck that in here. So underneath the frontmost wire that is on the right hand side here where the curl is. And just like this, I like to tuck it through here because there's usually like more of a gap. It's kind of hard to get it through there. But then we can just move it up here anyways. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap that around that wire several times. I would say 4 times at least would be good because you want that to be nice and attached. All right, so this is gonna be the 4th wrap, so I'm just gonna trim that. And then I'm gonna tuck that little wire end away. And now I'm gonna hold it because this whole thing might turn and the wire end might turn to face you. You don't want it to turn. So we're holding it and then we're bringing this wire up. When you bring this wire up, sometimes it just kind of turns the whole thing. That's why I like to hold it still. So I'm sliding this up now. It's becoming a little tight, so I'm going to use my pliers to just push it up here like this. And now I'm going to take this wire, I'm going to put it through the little curl and then underneath this wire as well, just like this, so that when I tighten it up, the curl gets attached. And now I'm just going to wrap it around 4 more times, just around this single frontmost wire. All right, so that's number 4. Now I'm just going to take this little wire end, I'm going to turn it inwards and press down on it to tuck it in there. And that is it. And that is the completed piece. So here is the finished piece on a cord necklace. So you can see how it would look, and then here's the piece that it was inspired by, the little pin from my previous tutorial. So you can see they do look quite similar. I have oxidized the copper on this one, so it's darker. But that's it. So I hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.